A California federal court issued a temporary restraining order blocking Microsoft from closing the largest deal in gaming history. I'm Rosemary Miller here with Paul Tassi, a senior video game contributor here at Forbes. Thank you so much for joining me today, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Microsoft was going to purchase the video game publisher Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion before this temporary restraining order. Could you tell us why would a court even issue this?
They are just trying to make sure that they kind of do their due diligence. The FTC has been talking about attempting to block this as time goes on because they believe it is anti-competitive. But just because they have issued a temporary restraining order and injunction, that does not mean they will eventually win it. So we'll see what happens, but it is just a temporary measure here.
I mean, I saw somewhere where Sony, they kind of had some issues with this deal. Why is that the case?
Sony believes that Microsoft is going to potentially take away huge franchises like Call of Duty from them. Microsoft has promised over and over and over again that they will not do this. They have offered Sony pledges that they won't do this, and yet Sony is not really wanting to take them at their words, and they are kind of doing everything possible to block this deal because they think it will hurt their business.
I mean, but like, why do they think that they're going to take their franchise like Call of Duty?
It does not exactly make the most sense. Call of Duty is such a big selling franchise that Microsoft kind of needs to keep selling it on PlayStation, which has tens and tens of millions of users. Sony's argument is that if Microsoft made Call of Duty exclusive to just Xbox or something like Xbox Game Pass, that Sony could potentially be cut out of that market, and it would make people want to buy more Xboxes. Xbox has said they're not going to do that, and they really do want to sell Call of Duty on PlayStation, but Sony maintains that it's a risk that they don't really want to take.
I mean, I'm not a gamer myself, but are gamers are they more kind of hooked on their station, their Xbox or their PlayStation, or is it the game itself?
It depends. A lot of games are third party. So Call of Duty has previously been like a third party game, which means it comes out for all consoles. It comes out for PlayStation, it comes out for Xbox. So it's kind of widely available. But when you are a company and you buy a studio, if you buy Activision and you fully own it, you do have the potential to be like, okay, Call of Duty is now only coming out on Xbox, which Microsoft, again, it's an option. Microsoft says they're not going to do it. But people are very much kind of in their camps for consoles. So we have like a PlayStation camp of fans, we have an Xbox camp of fans, and they're very, very tribal, very territorial. So any sort of debate like this over what's going to be exclusive or what they might no longer have access to has sparked a lot of heated debates, and that's kind of been one of the cruxes of this whole thing here.
Mm-hmm. So when this restraining order is over, what happens next?
Well, Microsoft seems to think this is a good thing because this will accelerate things kind of getting to court, and then Microsoft will argue their case. And it is possible that the FTC's injunction won't hold up. They tried to do this with Meta in some capacity before, and that got overturned. The US is kind of one of the last major hurdles to getting this deal done. Almost every country has approved it so far, the exception being the UK, where the regulatory bodies there did rule that at least some aspect of it was anti-competitive. So Microsoft is really hoping that the US doesn't make a declarative ruling about that. But if they did, that would be a really, really big problem for the deal.
Why?
Well, the US is a major, major market. When we're talking about the UK, if Microsoft, they've appealed the ruling, but if they can't get around it, they could do something crazy like, okay, well, Call of Duty is just not going to be sold in the UK anymore because they wouldn't allow us. The US market is really, really big. It's where Xbox is based. It seems unlikely they would be able to get around a very, very firm ruling that this merger, this acquisition is not going to be allowed. I'm sure they would appeal that to Kingdom Come, and they have a lot riding on this deal. But if this did not go their way, that would be a pretty significant problem for them.
So should gamers be expecting any change if this acquisition does happen?
Not in the immediate term. Xbox gamers should expect some bonuses to the games they would probably buy from Activision normally. At least some games from under Activision's catalog would be moving to kind of be added to Xbox Game Pass, which is Xbox's kind of Netflix subscription service they have. PlayStation gamers, unless Xbox is just lying, should still have access to Call of Duty, and it will likely be sold continually on PlayStation just like it is now. So in the grand scheme of things, it does not seem like a whole lot will change for most people if Microsoft does in fact stick to its word.
So let's say they are lying. Could there be any legal repercussions that would happen against Microsoft?
That's a good question. I don't know what the specifics of the law would be in terms of what. I think one of the problems is there's nothing super binding about anything they're saying right now, other than like, we promise to sign a deal if you would accept it. The problem would be that I see is that if they just were straight up lying and they immediately went back on their word, any future potential acquisition Microsoft would try to take on, they would just reference this and be like, you just lied in the Xbox case. Why should we let you acquire whatever company? And like, Microsoft obviously has been accused of antitrust concerns for a very long time, and they are always trying to scoop up companies here and there. So it would really not work to their benefit if they were just straight up lying about this. So that's why no real kind of outside observers probably believe that they are. I'm not even sure Sony actually believes they're lying. I think that's just kind of something that they're saying because they don't want the deal to go through.
Okay, just something they're saying. Why wouldn't they want this deal to go through?
It consolidates a lot of power around Microsoft, which is one of their chief rivals in the console space. It's a $70 billion deal, it's the largest the industry has seen ever. Microsoft purchased a studio called Bethesda for $7 billion. And at the time, that was like crazy. That was one of the biggest high profile publishers around. So to buy Activision, which is one of the largest independent game publishers overall, even if you're promising to keep games available, it still gives Microsoft kind of a considerable amount of power in the industry, in particular controlling Call of Duty, which remains usually one of the biggest franchises in the industry, depending on the year. So Sony doesn't love that aspect of it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.